What is the most out-of-touch thing an older person has told you? My dad visited me in the restaurant I was working in at the moment during peak hours and said, "Just tell your boss you're taking your break now. And sit with me." Yeah, that's not how it works. My dad. At Christmas, if I need, I can sell my pain meds on the black market and make a fortune. Me, where is this black market? Dad, eBay, fuck's sake. From a parent, when we die, you can just fly over here and move in for 6 months while you figure out what to do with all of our stuff. Sure, and what income will I have after I need to quit my job to do this? My grandmother didn't like female cats and dogs because they don't have good morals and want sex all the time. Anything my dad says about money. His mom was a widow and remarried an eventually wealthy man who helped my dad bankroll his own business, which my dad turned into a considerable net worth. He thinks everyone has access to startup capital because it happened to him. He thinks everyone should be at his level financially. He thinks everyone pays cash for everything. He is so out of touch with reality because it stopped affecting him for so long, and he just doesn't understand why everyone doesn't do what he did. That he raised me and my siblings, so he doesn't see why it's so difficult for us. He was an every other weekend dad for me, and my siblings have lived in a different state from him since elementary school. My mother said to me just a few days ago that a down payment for a house isn't that hard to save up for. I told her I barely have $5,000 saved up so far. She insisted that that is more than enough. I had to stress that 20 down has been the norm in our area since the 2008 crash. She hasn't bought property since the 90s. Just walk in and hand them a resume, they will hire you on the spot. A woman told me, "I always see you reading books. You'll never get a man if you're too smart." They don't like that sort of thing. My great-grandmother told me how to give myself a knitting needle abortion. She thought that was important information for a 7-year-old to know. I was told by my own mom, who's 61, that I shouldn't tell anyone that I have anything wrong with me, because if they found out I had mental problems they'd lock me up and never let me out. Just go there and ask for a job. Young people have no pride left. Why do they think it's okay to still live with their parents at 20? The average age to move out of a parent's home in the UK is 35 because there's a rental crisis, and a housing crisis especially in non-English countries, partially because the retired English keep buying second homes in Wales, Scotland and N.I. Wages have barely increased, but rent and mortgages have increased extreme amounts, and this is because of their generation. Why older people don't understand this concept is beyond me. Your side job is waiting tables at a senior retirement home? You have a college degree. You should apply to run the place. The current director has a master's in that related field. My grandpa spent a good 15 minutes on Christmas Day having a rant about female commentators in sport. About how they just don't shut up, as though it's not literally their job to talk about football or something. My grandma tells me to gain weight so that my hips can better support childbirth. Like every time she sees me I hear this, including when I was fighting cervical cancer. My only purpose in her eyes is to make babies, I guess. My parents once kicked my brother out of the house for days, not allowing him back inside without a job, because they were convinced you can still walk into any business like, "Hello, one job please," and get hired on the spot. Neither of them have even had an interview in 30 years. Well, when being gay was invented in the 60s. When you're feeling better. Dad, I'm disabled because my body is made from your and Mom's shitty broken DNA. I didn't get any help, he said, as he walked into a building with his dad's name on it. Edit: he embezzled all of Grandpa's money and bankrupted the company and went to jail, so I can't work there. Also, he says he did it because God told him to and it was the right thing to do, and I should thank him for setting such a good example. As 9-year-old me watched my dad get taken away in handcuffs for a crime he absolutely committed. Right after I divorced and was struggling to put life together, I was advised to get myself a sugar daddy. Sure. Every time my mother says I read it on Facebook and acts like it's cold hard truth. My retired parents still say unless you go to college and get a bachelor's degree you'll end up digging ditches. I never went to college and make more than both of them did. They'll die on that hill. My dad, a wealthy boomer in his 60s who's had the same job for over 30 years. People your age have never experienced real economic turmoil, like my generation has. The market has been kind to you. Me, his 31-year-old daughter. Dad's first name, what the fuck are you talking about? I've experienced 3 major recessions and I'm just in my 30s. You had to line up for gas in the 70s, while most of my friends can't get medical care or a mortgage. He hung up LOL. That the King James Bible is the only true and authentic Bible. And further stated that Hebrew and Greek were a dead language. As a theologian, I had to remind him that both languages are still used today. Also had to try and tell him how the King James has only been around since 1611. And how other much more ancient documents exist. Also had to inform him how we only have a canon of the Bible anyways because of the Catholic Church, see. People were kinder and less judgmental in my day. We didn't have any of this identity politics crap. They literally called in the military because black kids were going to school. My asshole scoutmaster demanded that we all carry a dime in the watch pocket of our scout shorts. Why? We could make a pay phone call. Damas did not know it was not 1950. Eisenhower wasn't president. Mr. Fuckface wanted us to carry wood-frame backpacks from World War II, old rock, old canvas pup tents, and cast iron frying pans. My grandma was shocked and couldn't understand why I couldn't just take as many days off work as I wanted to come to my grandpa's funeral. My dad told me if I voted for Obama I was a traitor to my country, and he said it with literal tears and rage in his eyes. I didn't say a word to him in response, I just shook my head sadly and left. My job is talking to Medicare members all day every day. I could tell you a lot of things. But generally, I get at least 4 calls a week from people who legitimately think that Medicare should and does pay for housekeeping. So many of these people think that once you turn 65 you never have to pay for any medical expenses, no co-pays, free transportation, etc. It's really bad around open enrollment. Because of all the ads talking about the grocery utility card, the ads make it seem like everyone gets it. But really you have to be like destitute broke-ass to qualify for that. Had a boomer aunt say how kids are so lucky today they don't have to do nuclear bomb drills. To her credit, when I said that, no, kids just have to do active shooter drills, her eyes went wide with realization that that was a more real threat than a nuke ever turned out to be. When I was in my 20s I was in a serious relationship with a black man, and my grandma sat me down and told me that no white man would want me after this. She was honestly concerned about my well-being and didn't mean it harshly. I just shrugged and told her I wouldn't want to date anyone who judged me like that anyway. My grandma was born in the 1930s to give some insight into her rationale. My mom, lifetime smoker, telling me I'd never convince her smoking caused her lung cancer. She became cancer-free after chemo and radiation. She then started smoking again, cancer came back, and it took her that time. Smoking addiction is horrible. Lots of people don't even want to own a home. Young people would rather rent because they don't want the responsibility of home ownership. STFU, Grandma. When my husband and I were living in apartments, as were his 2 brothers back in 2021, my FIL said he didn't understand why none of us just rented or bought a house, because he didn't think getting into the housing market was hard. He's also been renting a house for $900 a month from his longtime friend for almost a decade. Kids aren't expensive at all, ha ha ha. Okay, Grandpa. Are kids allowed to mention Christmas at school these days? I mean, all the doctors and nurses are all lovely, but none of them are English. My mum, unfortunately. She reads the goddamn Daily Mail. My grandpa told me that you should always keep a light bulb with copper wire hooked up to it in the car. That way if you need light in the car you can attach the wires to booster cables and hook it up to the battery.